Honas, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to start by going way back. When did you know that you wanted to be a singer, songwriter, performer?
Um, I think from a very young age, to be honest. I think I started learning guitar at 8 years old, and my two brothers were in a cover band at that point, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And yeah, I don't think I was playing guitar that long before I started writing little songs, and even first time I performed publicly was probably at 9 years old, and just loved the buzz of performing. And so I think from then I did have this image of myself fronting a band or becoming an artist, I think. Um and then I suppose, yeah, I always wrote songs with the intention of performing them myself live, but never landed on a sound or a direction that I was or a bunch of songs that I was happy with. So I actually played bass in a band for 5 or 6 years, around my college years, kind of waiting for the moment to feel right to do my own thing. And then eventually it did. In about 2019, I had written a bunch of songs that I was happy with, and it was from that moment I kind of started on the Honas journey, I guess.
Yeah. And what were the albums or songwriters that inspired you along the way?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's changed throughout the years, but one that was there all the time was David Gray. Um, he was, I mean, his White Ladder album, I think there's some stat that there's an average of two copies in every household in Ireland. So, um, yeah, he was a big one. Lately, and in the last, like, I suppose 5 or 7 years, like Bon Iver was a huge influence. Um, More recently, Andy Shaw. Um, and then something I realized just about the music that I've been making, I think there were some unconscious influences. I think growing up through the 2000s, I think a lot of the stuff that was popular at that time has worked its way into my music and comes out. People like Snow Patrol and early Coldplay, even though I wouldn't have been a huge fan of them at the time, I think they've kind of embedded themselves into what I do. So I think there's an element of that in my music, which is interesting. I actually had one or two people say to me that they copped that's why they loved my music so much, or why they felt this kind of air of nostalgia about it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Was that the kind of stuff that your brother's cover band was playing at the time?
Um yeah, I guess there would have been some Coldplay and Snow Patrol, and um like the Counting Crows stuff. And yeah, I remember my brother, like the first computer we had that could burn CDs. My brother was kind of making a lot of use of that, and but the hard drive space only held, 20 songs or something. So a lot of the mix CDs that he would make tended to have like the same kind of, 10 or 15 songs on them. So yeah, a lot of those kind of noughties, pop rock, indie rock stuff. Um, yeah, I would have listened to it a lot.
Yeah. So in general, what's the starting point for a Hannes song?
Um, I wish it was like a simple thing that I could just do the same every time, but it changes. It has to change because yeah, sometimes it's enough to pick up the guitar, and ideally I'll land on an interesting guitar part that sparks some kind of inspiration for a melody idea or whatever. And some songs have happened that way, and been written in an hour. Other times, the very odd time, it'll start with a lyric, um, just a one line idea, or even a title. But yeah, usually it's something musical, whether it's coming up with a guitar part, or maybe starting in Logic and dragging in a drum loop, maybe getting some sort of groove going. Um, yeah, that's probably, it's more often it would be that kind of thing. One of my tracks, Everyday Life, the way that was born was really interesting because me and my producer, Marion, we were working on a track of mine called Cash Machine. And just when we were throwing ideas around, Marion decided he would try a version of Cash Machine with completely different chords. So he did that and sent it over. And I was like, this sounds amazing, but I don't think it's right for the song. Um, so then when we sat down to do something new, he played back just what he had done for Cash Machine without the vocal. And we were both like, this is amazing. Like it would be a waste not to use it. And that's actually where Everyday Life was born. Um, so it was from these alternative chords that were, going to be an option for Cash Machine. We ended up just changing the feel, um, and adding obviously different parts. And yeah, I wrote the whole of Everyday Life to that then. So that was cool. I hadn't really done that before.
Yeah. Your latest release is actually a double release, Icy Blue and Someone of a Kind, a double A side in the old speak. Why did you feel that you wanted to release two songs at once?
I think partly because I'm impatient. um, I yeah, I've been dying to have more and more of my music up online so that when I tell people to check me out, there's a bit more of a catalog to check out. Um, Also, I think there was a difference in opinion of what the next single should be if it was just to be one release. Um, I think the obvious one for a lot of people was Icy Blue because it's more upbeat. Um, it has that kind of the catchy chorus. There's probably potential for more radio play, those kind of things. Um, but I just felt so strongly about Someone of a Kind as well that I was really pushing for it. And then yeah, the management pitched the idea of doing a double A side, and I just loved the idea of that because I mean the first few CDs I would have bought for myself with my limited pocket money and stuff would have been uh, CD singles with an A side and a B side. In this case, I definitely saw both songs as singles, so I was yeah definitely thinking of them both as A sides as well.
Yeah. Um, I believe Icy Blue was written in Canada. Were you playing shows over there or just on holiday?
It was written just after a trip to Canada. So no, it was kind of at the tail end of COVID. I have a really good friend out there, and he invited a group of friends out to celebrate his birthday, um, and to play a gig for for a release he was doing. So yeah, five of us were, we flew out, and some of us knew each other, didn't know some of the others, but yeah, we ended up just having the best time. Um, I think especially after 2 years of being locked up, it was just like we were like children, for the whole trip. And we were all traveling around in this SUV. Jake, the Canadian guy, was, carting us around for the whole trip. Um, but for some reason there was a theme of just blasting 80s music and, you know, some heavy rock as well. But one that just sticks out in my memory is Don Henley's Boys of Summer, just because we were cruising down these roads, and that's such a cruising song. Um, and Sam Fender was also kind of, it wasn't, he had released 17 Going Under not too long before that, I think. So I think that kind of driving rhythm upbeat thing was in my head, and I just wanted to try something along those lines for fun when I got back, and Icy Blue came out. The working title was Boys of Winter for a while, but I decided to change that one.
Do you find that travel enhances your creativity?
Um, yeah, I think so. Um, I do love traveling. I think just experience in general is always going to be inspiring. I mean, that was kind of a trip of a lifetime, and I was on a serious come down afterwards. Um, so it was also working through that come down as well as feeling inspired by what had just happened. I think that brought the song on. But yeah, I think if you experience anything new and unique, you come out of it feeling a bit inspired to write. In my case, anyway.
Yeah. Are you working towards an album, or are you happy to keep releasing singles?
So I have a couple more songs that are ready, fully recorded and ready to go. So I think what I'll do is put out an EP with a couple of new tracks and a couple of the ones that have been out already. And then I would love to work towards an album. I've started having that urge, and I was speaking about it with my producer, who I've written 2 tracks with now, or 3 tracks. Yeah, we work really, really well together, and we just love the idea of, booking a couple of weeks to just knuckle down and write an album from scratch. I think that would be really interesting to do, and I've been feeling that urge, so I can see an album on the horizon for sure.
Yeah. I was looking at a clip from a couple of years ago for the track Redesign. Um, you were playing a Telecaster in the clip. Is that your main guitar? And is there a romantic story about how you acquired it, or just from a music show?
Um, that was my main guitar for many years. I actually just picked up an Epiphone Sheraton last year, which I've been really enjoying. I've been playing that probably a bit more lately. But the Telecaster, yeah, I actually had originally bought a white Fender Jazzmaster, which I loved looks wise, but it just never felt right in my hands, unfortunately. It just didn't suit the way I was playing at the time and stuff. So I went into a great guitar shop in Dublin called Some Neck. And he just has this beautiful collection of, secondhand guitars, vintage guitars. Um, and yeah, I went in and asked what he would be up for trading the Jazzmaster for. And I was looking for a telly, and he gave me a couple of options, and that was one of them. And it was funny when I opened the case, it was obviously a heavy smoker that had owned it up till then, because I opened the case and just was hit with this really, really strong smell of cigarettes. So that actually took a while to wear off, even after I bought or traded for the guitar. But yeah, as soon as I started playing that, it sounded amazing and felt amazing. So that's where I picked that up.
Yeah. Also, in that clip, you were using a TC Helicon effects unit. You still
Yeah.
using that, or have you graduated to something else?
Yeah, I actually just played a gig last night and I was using it as well. I definitely don't use it um to its full ability. Um, there's so much built into it, but I think yeah, vocal effects wise, like last night, I was just using it for some extra reverb in the chorus of Someone of a Kind. That's kind of there's a big reverb hits there, so I was using it for that kind of thing. And then at the moment, if I just want a handy setup, um, I'm actually putting my guitar through it as well, because it has amp sims built in that are not bad. So it's, yeah, for those kind of plug and play gigs, it's definitely really handy to just turn up and plug in and go.
Yeah. Are you mainly playing solo at the moment, or are you playing with the band?
Yeah, so I mean, I moved to London not long ago, and I'm just kind of dipping the toes in and trying to play the odd showcase and kind of small slot wherever I can get it at the moment. So yeah, it's all solo for now, but I've played a couple of band gigs, and I mean, it is a much more satisfying experience for me, getting the songs across how they're meant to be got across, really. Of course, it's interesting playing them solo and letting people see them in a different light than the recordings, but it does feel good to play with a band. So I definitely intend on doing some band gigs over here.
So, what would you consider to be your greatest musical achievements to date?
Um, well, I think like one crazy one is the stream numbers on my song Control. That was a collaboration with a friend in Berlin just before, just as COVID was kind of becoming a thing. No one knew how it was being spread, or that we didn't have much knowledge on it yet. So I remember even going over to his house and feeling like, should I be here? Should I be singing into his microphone? Should I be whatever? And we just wrote those. I wrote those lyrics, and we kind of had the song finished in a matter of a few hours. So even though the style of it is very different to what I'm doing now, I still have a lot of love for that song, and it just did crazy well on Spotify, which is great. It's currently sitting over 20 million streams, which is amazing. So that's an achievement, I guess. And then also one of the coolest things I feel I've done was a thing called Hibernical, which was in the winter of 2020 or 2021. I can't remember, but yeah, kind of just squeezed in between lockdowns. It just about managed to happen. Where 16 artists were chosen to go for this kind of retreat where we collaborated throughout the week and then performed our new creations on a couple of live streamed shows at the end of the week. So that was a really cool experience for me. Even getting a chance to write with I was going to say one of my heroes, maybe not necessarily, but I just grew up hearing her voice and always definitely was a big fan of Lisa Hannigan. And when I showed her an unfinished song and she liked it and wanted to help me finish it and sing on it, it was just a really, really surreal and cool experience. And even sitting in the room with her, and the first moment she started singing some of the lyrics I had written, it was just a really, really, really cool moment. So that's definitely up there for me as well.
If money was no object, what would a Honas show look like?
Oh, I feel like I'd have to think about that one for a while. I mean, the possibilities are so endless now. I mean, when you see what people like the 1975 do with their shows on a visual level, honestly, I would have to think about that and probably talk to people who know about that stuff a lot better than me. But yeah, if money was no object, I don't know. I mean, there'd have to be pyrotechnics involved. I might have to write some new songs to actually suit some pyrotechnics, but I would do that if that was an option.
Have there been some shows that you've seen over the last few years that have really inspired you?
I saw Andy Schaaf in Dublin. This is the complete opposite to what I was just talking about with pyrotechnics and stuff, but I actually missed the first couple of songs because I didn't think he'd started yet. The volume of the PA was down so low, and the room was just forced to be quiet. It was in this place called the Button Factory in Dublin, which is like, anytime I had been there before, it's just so loud. People are drunk. There's a lot of club nights and stuff there, but even at gigs, it's just a loud, big venue. And just Andy Schaaf, all the musicians on stage were just barely playing, barely touching. And the PA was down so low that everyone in the room, if you talked, you would be heard, and your friends, everyone would be telling you to shut up. And it was just this really intimate, beautiful gig. Yeah, he managed to create this intimate feeling in a space that wasn't that small. And I just think his music has this real magical quality. So I definitely found that really inspiring.
Yeah. I believe you're into Gaelic football. Have you watched much Australian football?
I haven't actually. I know that I don't know, are they still doing it? For a while we were doing a what did they call it? A mix between Aussie rules and Gaelic football.
We used to send teams over there, but for some reason, the matches always escalated into violence, and they gave it away, I think.
Yeah, I actually remember those matches being on when I was a kid, but I didn't remember that. Yeah, were they always really violent? That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
don't.
think yeah, Aussie rules is a bit more, it's a bit more is it like a mix between Gaelic football and rugby? Like there is a lot of physical contact, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, Gaelic football is definitely a physical game, but you're definitely not allowed technically rugby tackle others. But yeah, I can't remember what they used to call that mix
Yeah, I'm
that
not.
they used to, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That's really interesting. I'm gonna go look up some of those old matches and watch them again.
Mine is the same. Yeah. So, what's the grand plan for Honas?
Um, I mean, if we're talking 10 years down the line where I'd like to be, I'd I'd just love to be consistently making albums that I'm really proud of and that I feel I'm pushing myself with. Um, and reaching an audience with that, that it resonates with, and being able to tour, play live shows to, I mean, there's a couple of bucket list venues in Ireland and stuff, but um, yeah. And then as well as that, I also produce for others, and do that kind of thing. So I think I'd like to have those things running alongside. Um, at the moment, I tend to kind of be putting all my focus into Hunnis, and then if a production job comes up, I'll kind of focus on that alone for a while. And I think I'd like those two things running alongside each other at a good level. Um, yeah, but mostly just writing stuff that I'm really proud of and happy with, and yeah, doing what feels right and not feeling pressure to write a certain song or anything. I'd love to make a living doing that, and I feel I have the potential to do that as well. So that would be the goal.
Well, Hugh, it's been great to chat. All the best with the music, and we hope to see you down here in Australia one day.
Yeah, I'd love to go. Thank you very much for having me.